Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. This week, during a pandemic, where do you give birth?
We had a plan. We didn't do any of it, but that's pretty much the way birth goes, I guess. I'm running around with masks and gloves on, and all of a sudden, in one big bellow of a scream, I heard the baby cry.
We'll have the story of a family that cultivated an heirloom tomato in West Virginia. It took a lot of work.
And I have pictures of Bob standing on a stepladder in the garden where he's still tying the tomatoes.
And a musical tradition brought people together, even when they couldn't gather in person.
Give joy or grief, give ease or pain, take life or friends away. But let me find them all again in that eternal day.
You'll hear these stories and more this week inside Appalachia.
Support provided by the COPD Foundation, presenting health screening events April 7 in Portsmouth and April 8 in Huntington. More information, copdf.co/events.
Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. 5 years ago, Central Appalachia was recovering from catastrophic flooding that struck in February 2020. The floods washed out roads and destroyed hundreds of homes. One man drowned in his car while trying to escape. But the story was overlooked as national media focused on a new and deadly virus that was spreading around the world. COVID-19 dominated the news. So Kentucky writer Silas House wrote an article for The Atlantic titled, "Eastern Kentucky is Underwater, but you probably didn't notice." After it published, West Virginia Public Broadcasting's Brittany Patterson spoke with House, who began by reading an excerpt.
My mother situated me on her hip, took a deep breath, and stepped off our porch into the icy floodwaters. I was 2 years old. It was March 1974, and the rain had been pummeling Lilly, Kentucky, for 2 weeks. The ground had become so saturated that the flash flood came all at once. By the time my mother had navigated us through the waist-high mix of overflowing creek water, sewage, and debris to higher ground, my father had made it home from work, where he found water reaching the windows of our trailer. Family members came to help and frantically piled some of our belongings into a metal rowboat. When the flood receded, my parents salvaged what they could, but after days of shoveling mud, they found that the floors, furnace, and appliances had been destroyed. My mother says this was the first time she ever saw my father, a Vietnam veteran and auto mechanic, cry. It's one of the things I feel luckiest about is that I grew up in the woods. My father worked third shift, and so that meant that in the summertime when I was in school, I just about had to stay outside, or be silent. And so we were just always in the woods. We played in the creek all the time. We built dams, then we'd tear down the dam. We would build elaborate rock fortresses for our Star Wars figurines. We were incorporating our toys into the natural world. Just laying, in a field and looking at the clouds and running with my dog. And even when I started riding, I had a little typewriter that my aunt bought me, and I would take it out into the woods and sit with it and write, So even today, I'm 48, and I still prefer to write outside.
You argue in this essay that in a lot of ways, those of us who live in rural areas, we have a really strong connection to nature. And I think the hypothesis or the crux of this article is for those who might be out of sight and out of mind, they start to lose their connection to nature.
Well, I do sort of want to make the disclaimer that I don't think that just because somebody lives in an urban area that they're not necessarily aware of nature or appreciate it. However, I think when it's something that dictates your everyday life, you are more aware of it. When you go outside and there's a mountain standing in front of you, and it is going to add an hour to you getting to wherever you need to go because you have to go around it, or, you have to drive way down the river to cross the river, etc. I mean, those are really substantial parts of your day. And I know that when I was growing up, I had this incredible woods and pasture right in front of our house. And it was just like kind of my paradise. And then one day, all these bulldozers came in, and it became a strip mine for the next 2 years. And it just sort of, I never got over that. It changed the way that I trusted everything, to see that could be taken. So I think when you live in a place of extraction, especially, you're real aware of how it can be devastated and how it can be taken away. But there is also some kind of, I think, when you live in a place that's so ruled by the natural world, it does get into your blood and bones. It becomes a part of you. It's part of your collective memory.
One of the things I was most struck about your essay is, in a lot of ways, it seems like that strong connection, it hasn't translated to society valuing rural communities or paying attention when natural disasters like the recent flooding happen.
I think most Americans want nature when it's convenient for them, and they don't want to go to any trouble to protect it. I hate to be so cynical, but that's certainly the way it feels. You see people in the Smoky Mountains National Park, they're admiring the beauty of the mountains, and then they'll throw their trash out the window on the way out of the park. It's mind-boggling and it's frustrating. And I think that if you really love the natural world, you have to go out of your way to protect it in whatever way you can.
At the same time, you do mention in this piece sort of the disconnect between communities in places like Kentucky that have a really strong connection to the environment around them that also, have supported a president and administration that its default is to roll back a lot of environmental regulations. How do you square those things?
I wish I knew how to square them. It's something that I think about all the time. I know where I'm from, people care so deeply about so many of the same issues that this administration is attacking, yet so many of them support this administration. I can't quite make it. I can't come to a place of understanding it totally. I know that a lot of that is tied up in religious things, to some degree, and I can respect that aspect of being true to your faith. But part of my faith is protecting the environment, and so I think about that when I vote as well. And I wish that more people in Appalachia did. And I think so often we have spent our whole lives feeling like we don't have power, seeing that our voices don't matter. And to some degree, I think we start to believe that, that's just the way it is. That's something that I hear a lot of people say, that, well, that's just the world we live in. There's nothing we can do to change it. I don't agree with that.
You write one of the consequences of society sort of writing off the experience of rural communities for so long and of people who live in rural areas is that by turning a blind eye to rural people, we're turning a blind eye to climate change.
Well, I think as long as there's been popular media, this has happened. You can trace it back to the literature that came about right after the Civil War, the local color literature, where Appalachian people were among the first to be really stereotyped, portrayed as throwaway people or people who don't matter, stupid people, dirty people, etc. And so when so much of the population thinks of you that way, that really helps the corporations, that helps industry. It makes it much easier to come in and destroy a community when the rest of the country just thinks they're throwaway people. Something I think we've become so used to being negated, to a certain point, we just start to accept it, and we just can't do that. We have to stand up against that in whatever way we can.
Yeah, and recognizing that climate change is already here. It's already impacting floods and other natural disasters in this region.
To me, that's the main thesis of the essay that was in the Atlantic, is I hear so many people in places of power like New York City or Los Angeles or D.C. who, want to talk about climate change and want to criticize the people of Appalachia for their role in that in the way that the region historically votes. But at the same time, these places of power are the very people who have negated rural people so long. So, it creates this cycle that they can't seem to understand how that happens. And it is complex and it's complicated, but Appalachians don't exist in a vacuum. They're very aware of that negation and will take power however, it's available to them.
That was Kentucky writer Silas House, speaking with WVPB's Brittany Patterson in 2020. In June of 2020, West Virginia Public Broadcasting videographer Chuck Klein and Pennsylvania resident Joe Buckland recorded their experiences with having children during the pandemic. Buckland and his wife had a baby in mid-February, nearly a month before the lockdowns. Klein and his wife, Glennis Board, WVPB's assistant news director at the time, had a baby in March, about a week after most staff were sent home.
Where it all really started for me was we started hearing of a pandemic on the news right at the beginning of March. On March 13th, the governor of West Virginia basically said, hey, we're closing schools down. That went into effect on the 16th. And by Governor Jim Justice put a stay-at-home order for the state of West Virginia, shelter in place. And it's like, holy crap, I'm about to have a baby. What kind of world am I about to bring my kid into?
My daughter Olivia was born on February 19th, right before the pandemic started. It kind of changed things. I lost my job, much like most of the country, it seems, on March 16th. And I became a full-time stay-at-home father. I like to call myself a house dad. Or a house spouse, trying to be clever about it. I bonded with my kid the minute she was born. Actually, that's not entirely true. It took me a couple of days because I remember now I was in shock. My fiance was in labor for 72 hours, and when Olivia was finally born, it was such a monumental moment. I cried, of course, but I knew that everything had changed in a good way. I knew that my life would never be the same, but I was so excited. I was anxious. I was terrified, to be honest.
There was a lot of anxiety for me. Over what if I get it? What if I struggle with it? What if I don't survive it? What if my baby gets it? What if my children get it? I think everybody went through these emotions. And so I was struggling with it a little bit. And on March 28th, I didn't sleep very well at all. I was up probably at 3 a.m. and I was sitting downstairs just fiddling through a phone or something, just basically struggling a little bit, trying to get a grasp on this unwinding of our normal society, our normal way of life. And my wife, Glennis, texted me from upstairs and said, hey, what you doing? I said, just basically trying to focus myself and trying to calm myself down. And she replied with, I really need you to be calm because Kai is coming today. We were not going to the hospital. We had several reasons for that. She wanted to try to do it at home. And then with this pandemic, there was no way we were going to go to the hospital unless we absolutely had a super emergency going down. We had a plan. We didn't do any of it, but that's pretty much the way birth goes, I guess. I'm running around with masks and gloves on and bottles of bleach and spray bottles of hand sanitizers, and like I was changing some sheets on the main bed, and all of a sudden, in one big bellow of a scream, I heard the baby cry. Nature just was like, no, we're just gonna do it right here on the floor. Oh no. Oh no, yeah. And perfect timing, because this is where you come into the story. Yeah, you. Yep. So then you were born. I know. It was a weird day, wasn't it? Born at 1 o'clock.
My daughter's only now 3 months old, so there really wasn't a lot of things that I had to do with her. Babies that age, you feed them, you keep them clean, you hold them when they cry, and you make sure they get enough sleep, and that's pretty much it. Now we're doing tummy time, which is kind of cool. Put her on her belly, and she's got to kind of push herself up and look around. It's really neat to watch this little girl grow up into a person. My fiance is the breadwinner in the family. She works during the day, and the plan originally was for me to work in the evening, which when things open up and get back to normal, that's still going to be the plan, is for me to be at home during the day and work at night. Hopefully we can make that work. Hopefully the restaurant industry will pick back up. My mom stayed with us for a week and helped us really get into a groove of changing diapers and feeding and giving baths and things like that. And then when she left, it was just the two of us.
I am home. I'm not going out anywhere. I'm not working on the road. I'm home. And I don't know, I just got to bond with him. I got to bond with him like I've never bonded with anybody. He's just this brand new, innocent little spirit with these big eyes. And he looked right at me. And he just hold on to you, hold on to your finger, make the cute little coon noises. And just, he needed you to do everything for him. But instead of having any interruptions from the world, it was just him. And that's something I can't articulate. I can't articulate it, I don't think. Other than it was an absolutely beautiful bonding time that I will never forget in my whole life.
I fully plan on being as involved as I can in my daughter's life. Take her to dance or to karate or baseball or, whatever sport she wants to play. If she wants to play sports, if she wants to be in the band, I want to be there. I want to be involved. It's so fun to watch this part of me grow into a little person, and to see her experience the world with her through her eyes. At the same time, it is kind of scary to see the world through her eyes, because things are looking uncertain. Right now we've got the riots going on over the murder of George Floyd. I worry about the kind of world that my daughter's going to be growing up in. But the only thing I can do right now is have hope, and I can try and teach her the right ways of things.
That was Joe Buckland in Mount Pleasant, Pennsylvania, and Chuck Klein in Wheeling, West Virginia. Glennis Board sent us an update and says her son is now 5 and seems to be navigating the world with great humor and gratitude. Later in the show, serious gardeners are familiar with the mortgage lifter tomato. But it turns out there's another mortgage lifter tomato, and it's even older. You're inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams.
Support for Inside Appalachia is provided by Concord University, offering 31 bachelor-level degrees and 6 master-level degrees for students of any age. More information at concord.edu.
One of my friends hates tomatoes, but started growing them in 2020 because he, quote, wanted to be part of it. It being growing a garden, complete with a swath of heirloom tomatoes, like a variety called Radiator Charlie's Mortgage Lifter tomato. This heirloom breed got its start in Logan County, West Virginia. A guy known as Radiator Charlie bred 2 varieties of tomato together to get a giant, juicy fruit. Word spread, and eventually so many people bought his $1 tomato plants that he was able to pay off his house. That's how the Mortgage Lifter got its name. But in 2020, Folkways reporter Zach Harold brought us a story about another West Virginia tomato plant, also called Mortgage Lifter. And it's even older. Here's Zach.
I'm sitting in Mary Lou Essler's dining room. Does this have salt on it already?
I just brought it, didn't I bring it?
Before me on a blue china plate are 4 slices of tomato and a big dollop of Mary Lou's homemade mayonnaise. Oh, wow. I didn't come here to eat tomatoes. Mary Lou just happens to be one of those Appalachian grandmothers who won't take no for an answer when it comes to food. I'd really come here to talk about her in-laws. When she married her late husband Bob in 1960, it wasn't long before she was introduced to a priceless family heirloom, an heirloom tomato.
They had beautiful dinners. There was a back porch over there and big family. And Mrs. Essler owned a Blinko piece of glass. All the way around would be these gorgeous slices of Mortgage Lifter tomatoes. So that was always a favorite.
Now, these weren't the so-called Radiator Charlie mortgage lifters you find in lots of seed catalogs nowadays. No, this was a breed of tomato developed by Mary Lou's father-in-law, William Essler. It first showed up back in the mid-1920s, several years before Radiator Charlie brought his tomato to market.
Mr. Essler had 2 tomatoes that he was raising, the Pritchard and the Ponderosa. People were not able to get tomatoes that were not acidic. And Mr. Essler was interested in seeing if he could develop a tomato that was low acid. Evidently put those 2 tomatoes together and came up with this one very special tomato.
Special indeed. Some reports say the plants could grow up to 12 feet tall. The tomatoes themselves were round, red on the outside, pink on the inside, and could weigh up to 2.5 pounds apiece. But most important of all, they were delicious. Pleasantly sweet, not acidic and sour.
Mrs. Essler had them for breakfast with a little sugar on them.
The tomatoes were a hit with family and friends alike, so William Essler built a greenhouse and started raising seedlings.
He sold them on to local vendors, and to local nurseries, and provided seed to some of these local nurseries. He did not sell them on a retail basis. He strictly sold on a wholesale basis to some of these nurseries.
Dean Williams is Mary Lou's son-in-law and the family's unofficial tomato historian.
their goal was never on a national basis. It always looked like they kept things on a local basis. I never saw anything that gave an indication that they were trying to make this on a national type of tomato.
It was actually an offhand remark by an employee of one of those nurseries who gave the tomato its name, Mortgage Lifter. William Essler liked the name so much, he had it copyrighted in 1932. By the time Mary Lou joined the family, though, her father-in-law was getting up in years. He had turned over the farm to his son. That's Bob, Mary Lou's husband. And Bob converted much of the property to a 9-hole golf course to keep from having to sell it. Bob kept on raising his father's tomatoes, though, and his passion only increased after his father passed away in 1968 in a house fire.
Bob would put out about 75 tomato plants, and then he would, make a point to save the choice tomatoes to save the seed from. He was kept busy all summer. You have to continually spray the tomatoes. They have to be tied, and I have pictures of Bob standing on a stepladder in the garden where he's still tying the tomatoes.
We made the mistake of bringing a cherry tomato plant to Mary Lou once, and that was a no-no, a definite no-no. He would not allow any other tomato on the property to grow because he didn't want to find any cross-pollination of any sort. He wanted the purity of his tomato and that strain to remain intact.
It was always just Mortgage Lifters.
If Bob was so protective of his father's tomato that he wouldn't even allow other breeds on his property, well, you can imagine how he felt when he found out there was another tomato making the rounds, also called the Mortgage Lifter. In 1987, Bob received a letter from a guy in Texas who got Mortgage Lifter seeds from his sister. She lived in Huntington and got Mortgage Lifter seeds from Bob. The Texan was leafing through a Southern Exposure Seed Exchange catalog one day when he came across a Mortgage Lifter tomato, attributed not to William Essler of Barbersville, West Virginia, but to Radiator Charlie from Logan, West Virginia. Confused, he wrote Bob a letter to see if he could clear things up.
And we were like, what? We were, it was really rather shocking to find out that someone else was getting the credit for all of Mr. Essler's hard work.
Bob didn't have much recourse. William Essler's copyright lapsed in the 1970s after the family attorney failed to file a renewal. So Bob did the only thing he could. He fired off a letter to Southern Exposure demanding the listing be removed. Now let's be clear. Bob did not believe that Radiator Charlie was claiming William Essler's tomato as his own. They're different plants bred from different parent tomatoes. Bob just felt that, with Radiator Charlie using the Mortgage Lifter name, his father's tomato, the original Mortgage Lifter in his mind, was being overshadowed. The letter didn't work. Southern Exposure and a lot of other seed catalogs still sell Radiator Charlie's tomato, and it's still called the Mortgage Lifter. But for the rest of his life, Bob did what he could to set the record straight. He gave lots of interviews to newspapers, magazines, and TV stations, and he also gave away a lot of tomatoes. That generosity is part of the reason the Essler Mortgage Lifter is still around today. Mary Lou tried to keep the strain going after Bob died in 2012, but she couldn't contend with the deer that liked to stop by. Her son-in-law, Dean Williams, grows tomatoes that he's pretty sure are Essler Mortgage Lifters. That's what they served me when I stopped by for the interview.
They came from the Hatcher nursery in South Point. We grew 3 plants this year, so they came in fairly well. We still have quite a few tomatoes, but they're fairly on the smaller side than what they're used to.
But Bob sent seeds to lots of people through the years. The family has heard that relatives in Virginia are growing Essler Mortgage Lifters. There's tales that the seeds have even made it to Australia and Panama and Africa. But the family knows for sure that a niece in Alabama is growing the genuine article. She's going to send seeds back to West Virginia so Dean can get them going here again. That's what's special about heirloom seed varieties. Their stories are never over, so long as people keep growing them. And knowing the story only makes the food taste better. I can testify to that.
They may not have been as far as
I'm not just saying this because the tape is rolling.
Grab a water too.
I'm not just saying this because the tape is rolling. This is seriously one of the best tomatoes I've ever had.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that. That's what everybody thinks.
For Inside Appalachia, I'm Zach Harold in Barbersville, West Virginia.
Lettuce and homegrown tomatoes up in the morning, out in the garden. Get you ripe when you don't get a
That story is part of our Folkways reporting project, which covered arts and culture in our region, even through the early pandemic. You can find more stories at our website, wvpublic.org. A lot of big events were canceled in 2020. High school proms, baseball games, and even family reunions. But some annual traditions would not be stopped, like foraging for ramps. People still went out to their favorite ramp patches in early spring. In 2020, we aired this story of a ramp hunting expedition led by Maryland Park Ranger Caroline Blizzard. Photographer and filmmaker Michael Snyder tagged along to record her for the Mountain Traditions Project.
So everybody, the goal is each person 1 market sack full-ish.
1 bag?
You can do 2, but remember, we got to clean them later. Whoop whoop! Ramp digging day! So excited! So we're in the mountains of Western Maryland. That's as close as I'm going to give you. Somewhere deep in Garrett County, a well-held secret digging ramps at our traditional ramp patch. So a ramp is the best onion available. So take your thoughts of garlic, your thoughts of leeks, and your thoughts of onions and put that all into one delicious spring bulb, and that's what a ramp is. Coming fresh from the forest, only available for about 2 weeks. It's kind of like maple syrup. It's finite, right? Once the sugar in the sap shifts in the maple trees, production's done. Once these guys go to bloom or start to seed, it's over. So you get a really good, it's the freshest, the snow's just off. They're just delicious. All right, so we'll go over the process again, mainly for you guys, once we get down there. All right, you ready? Wait, where's the blindfolds? Just kidding. So ramps really require a specific slope, a specific sun to grow, soil pH, a wetness. But as you can see, where they grow like crazy. And in some places for miles on a mountainside, in the middle of nowhere, down a railroad track that nobody knows about, that's where the ramp patch grows. And watch the wildflowers as you go too. So look at the trout lily blooming. This one right there. Awesome. They're so pretty. All right, let's start. So everybody's got their own favorite and different tool, as you can see. We've got long shovels, we have crowbars. I have a hori-hori knife in here somewhere. You want to spread out. We don't want to look like we've been here, and it'll be easy to not do that. Obviously, we're going to see that we've been walking through it because there's a bunch of us, but it will recover. When you sit down, like you decide you're going to dig here, you're going to just pick a few out of this one spot, right? And you're going to leave the rest. So you want to get straight down under the root, and if you clip the roots off, as you get better at doing this, all the better, because you're leaving the roots behind. There's your first pile of ramps. All right. Divide and conquer. All right, go forth. Does anybody want my hori-hori knife or? I grew up knowing of a thing called a ramp because my cousins would come and slide a jar across the table to my grandfather and say, here's the yearly ramps. And so I knew it existed. I knew it delighted him whenever that ramp jar came. And then we had done our first ramp cook-off, and newspapers had picked it up, and some of my grandfather's brothers emailed me and started telling stories. And during that ramp cook-off, old-timers were coming, same thing, telling the stories. We started a memory book. People were writing down what they remembered of ramps. And now when I'm in a patch like this, invariably I hear my grandmother at some point talking to me, or my grandfather, Uncle Bud is saying, you need some butter and some white bread and make yourself a sandwich. So for me, it really connects to my ancestors, and I think it does that for a lot of people. And I enjoy bringing that back up into the culture, and I enjoy bringing it to new folks who maybe don't have that connection to it, but now maybe have it through me. So the secrets to finding a good ramp patch is word of mouth. We never knew this was here. We spend all our time at this camp other than in April and had no idea the patch was here till they said, and was like, wow. So someone gave up their secret, which is how we found it. So it's a more coveted thing, but a ramp is a ramp. It's not cultivatable. It doesn't want to grow where it doesn't want to grow. So I think it keeps it safer. It protects it a little bit, protects the heritage around what the ramp is. We're not mass producing them in farm fields. You still have to really work to get it and know someone to do it. Climate-wise, it seems to be doing pretty good. What climate change will do to it, is yet to be seen. I mean, it's very specific. Its habitat, its temperatures, its specific everything, and the specific everything is changing for a lot of species. So I don't know that anybody's looked at the ramps or have noticed it yet. We haven't here, but it's hard to say what the future's going to bring in terms of that. Whenever you guys feel like it being done, we're probably good. The more you pick, the better the ice cream.
What we're making this morning are some hash browns and ramps. We call them rampy hash browns. I'm also going to be frying up some eggs with ramps and some poblano peppers. So just give everybody a little taste on a beautiful morning and start the day off right with some ramps and eggs.
So we're at the Deep Creek Lake State Park Discovery Center. We're at the 18th annual Ramp Cook-Off.
I made a ramp and bacon jam.
We have made boudin balls, but we mix ramps and covered them in breadcrumbs and fried them.
We have, this is a version of an old German potato pancake recipe. And they're potato cheddar ramp pancakes with ramp butter on top of them, which is just real butter with the ramp leaves in it, and some of the ramp balls too. And this is cream cheese ramp dip to go with the crackers.
This year I'm making a Mexican street corn fritter. There's some ramps in it. It's just corn and masa, lime, and chili with the ramps, of course, with water. We'll fry it up in the pan.
We always judge on rampiness, and it became pretty clear early that a raw ramp is inherently rampier than a cooked ramp. So we divided into two categories, and now we have a cooked and a raw ramp category. And the winner takes home the coveted jar of pickled ramps from last year's season. So they've been stewing for a year, and they get the pickled ramps and a certificate and bragging rights for a year. Hopefully that's worth something. Judges are in the house, so this is a blind judging. So once you're set up, go ahead and step away. I'll walk around with the judge. We have a long-standing judge who's been a judge from the beginning, Kevin Dodge. He's a community staple, and he never passes up a free meal. And then I typically just pull someone from the crowd to be the judge. So there's always this impartial, someone who's maybe not even familiar with ramps, so kind of coming at it blind purely from taste.
So how much? This is one of my favorite, freelance bands of the 90s. Was Bacon Ramp Jam. Yeah.
Okay, so do you want it with the apple or without?
I think you should take it with the apple.
Oh yeah, I think you want to do. Now, do you want to put a piece of cheese with it?
It's with it.
It's already there.
Oh, it's already with it. Okay. There you go. All right. Well, I'm gonna go for the entire poo-poo platter.
Okay, so I'll do the same.
Let the stink begin.
Yeah, bacon makes everything better.
All right. Number one, and this was really cool, and obviously this has to do with originality. This really is good tasting. The sweet and savory chocolate and sea salt batter dipped ramps. It also gets a second award for the longest name. So anyhow, so thank you all so much. This is isn't it a gorgeous time of year, even though it's cold?
One of the oldest European musical traditions in Appalachia is shape note singing. It's also called sacred harp singing. It's sung a cappella, often in large groups, with singers facing each other in a square. Social distancing made shape note singing a lot harder, but a group figured out a way to continue to sing through the pandemic. Inside Appalachia editor Kelly Libby, then a Folkways reporter, filed this story in 2020.
Harmony is a defining feature of shape note singing, which is also called sacred harp, not because harps are played, but because in this tradition, the voice is a musical instrument. This is from an all-day singing convention, an annual event with a potluck dinner, in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, which I first reported on in 2012.
The vocal style is unadorned and unpolished. The harmonic qualities of the music are striking. There's a lot of resonant chords that sound old.
Chris Wolf is a school teacher and sacred harp singer from Floyd County, Virginia.
You really see people shouting with joy and in the full experience of their grief and in the joy of being together in community. The tradition is like a sturdy enough structure that we can actually let go for a second and let our inner experience happen.
Shape note singing is not performance. Under normal circumstances, singers only sing for each other. But under the current circumstances, shape note singing is largely on hold. That's because health experts say shouting and singing with a large group in an enclosed room is almost a sure way to spread the coronavirus.
So there's this acknowledgement that, yeah, that's what we have to do, but it really hurts.
Tim Morton is a documentary filmmaker and singer from Louisville, Kentucky. As someone who's practiced sacred harp for more than a decade, not singing was not an option. So, using smartphone videos submitted by more than 150 people, Tim created a virtual shape note singing and uploaded it to YouTube.
Hello.
Because it's virtual, the singers aren't really together, even if it sounds like they are.
Oh, let's sing the notes.
But just like in real life, they start by singing the notes, fa, sol, la, and mi. This is a popular shape note tune called Hallelujah. The words were written in 1759.
It says, "And let this feeble body fail, and let it faint or die. My soul shall quit this mournful vale and soar to worlds on high." And this is where it really hits home, I feel like, is give joy or grief, give ease or pain, take life or friends away. But let me find them all again in that eternal day.
Give joy or grief, give ease or pain, take life or friends away.
And the chorus is, "And I'll sing hallelujah, and you'll sing hallelujah, and we'll all sing hallelujah when we arrive at home."
The video has gone viral with nearly 34,000 views. Tim says he never expected it to resonate with so many people.
Some of the YouTube responses was like, "I'm weeping," and I mean, even it actually it kind of excuse me, it's just I can easily get choked up at times, but I think that the responses that I was getting were a big surprise to me, honestly. I felt like the experience that people had by watching it seemed, under these circumstances, something that really people were needing at that moment.
It's moving to watch. But Tim says ultimately the video is a novelty project, that virtual singing just can't replace the experience of singing with a group of people in person. So Chris Wolf does the next best thing. Remember, he's the sacred harp singer from the beginning of this story. Chris sings in real life with one person. This is Chris with his wife Roxanne Greenberg. They're both part of a singing community in Floyd. And they're both teachers, a job that became busier in the spring after classes moved online.
Just being able to sing a song for 1.5 to 2 minutes, that does create some openness and some spaciousness and some rest.
In 2015, Roxanne and Chris were the first two singers in what eventually became a small group that met twice a month in Floyd.
People like Chris and myself, people who live together or people who are coupled, they can still sing together. And we have folks that we sing with who live alone. And so I wonder how it might feel different for them.
With cases rising nationally, it's unclear how sacred harp singing communities will fare. Chris says it's unlikely the tradition itself will suffer, but that for now, what is suffering is a socially distanced community. I'm Kelly Libby.
Oh, glory. Oh, glory. There's room enough in paradise to have a home in glory.
Sacred harp singers throughout Appalachia are back to singing together in person now. We've posted a link on our website where you can find shape note singings near you. That's at wvpublic.org. 5 years after the pandemic, there's a certain sense of deja vu here in the mountains. Central Appalachia is recovering from severe flooding that's largely been ignored outside of Appalachia. And another virus is looming. This time, it's the bird flu, which is already causing consternation among farmers and in the egg aisles at the grocery store. We're still dealing with the ramifications from the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown. The virus continues to circulate. Some individuals are still living with long COVID, and people are still dealing with the political and economic fallout. The lockdowns may have ended, but the pandemic's legacy continues. We leave you with a track from the album Don't Get Dead, Pandemic Folk Songs by the Cornelius Eady Trio. It was first released in 2021 and recently re-released on vinyl. This is the title track.
On the day we beat the devil, gonna put on my dancing shoes. Gonna lift my soul from its hiding place. Gonna vacate my blues. One day the sun's gonna shine. Gonna push the sad man out of my mind. We'll toss the feathers on top of our tread. Oh, darling, don't get dead.
On the day we beat the devil, oh, put on your party dress. Ribbons and bows and bells on your toes, we'll settle for nothing less.
One day the sun's gonna shine. Gonna push this sad world out of our minds. Throw a parade on the bones of our red.
Till next time, thanks for joining us as we journey throughout Appalachia. Our theme music is by Matt Jackford. Other music this week was provided by Jeff Ellis, Tyler Childers, Noam Pickleney, Mary Hott, and the Cornelius Eady Trio. Bill Lynch is our producer. Abby Neff is our associate producer. Our executive producer is Eric Douglas. Kelly Libby is our editor. Our audio mixer is Patrick Stevens. We had help this week from Folkways editors Chris Julin and Caitlin Tan. You can find us on Instagram @InAppalachia. You can also send us an email to insideappalachia@wvpublic.org. Visit wvpublic.org/InsideAppalachia to subscribe or stream all of our stories. Or look for Inside Appalachia on your favorite podcast app. Inside Appalachia is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Support for Inside Appalachia is provided by Concord University, educating the people of our region and beyond for more than 150 years. More information at concord.edu.
Make it out of this one. If the clouds burst and sweeps us away, if the game gets called on count of darkness and the clocks run down today, if it's high noon at the honeymoon, if sooner or later his hair, in case it was missed between our kiss, I said I'd a shot of your hair. Thank you, baby. Thank you, friend. Some things come and go, some things never end. Circling the raft, me and you, we had a good old time. We put some pins on the map. So if the devil is calling the tune and the world is learning the dance, a tip to the hand.